Hello, grade 9s. This is the first part of our lesson today on initial value. So we've mentioned that word before, but initial value is the starting value when you're looking at a relationship. Like if you were looking at the cost of hiring a plumber, it was how much it would cost to start. Or if it's a pattern, it's term 0 in the pattern. So initial value isn't necessarily the first item in your table, but it is always the one where we're looking at term 0 in our table. So we're going to look at a couple of tables of values, and we're going to see if we can pick out or calculate what the initial value would be. So in this one, it says state the initial value for each of the following, and we have hours worked and money earned. So when I'm looking for the initial value, I am looking for term 0. So on the X side, or the side that's on the left-hand side, I am looking for a 0. And I see here that for hour 0, they earned $25. So my initial value is going to be $25. So I could write initial value equals $25, or I'm a little lazy, so I usually just write IV for initial value equals and then $25. You want to include that it is dollars, so you want to include the unit. It's $25. All right, in our second table, we have temperature in degrees Celsius, and we have length of the icicle. And I'm looking for my initial value. The initial value is not necessarily the first one, right? It is the one that is term 0. So I am looking on that left-hand side, on the X side of my columns, to find a 0, which is right here. So term 0 is 12. So the initial value would be 12 centimeters. So my initial value is 12 centimeters. Okay, so when it's in a table, you want to look for the 0 on the left-hand side, and then the initial value would be the one on the right-hand side. In question number 2, we are going to look at some examples where we can't see term 0 in the table. So it says calculate the initial value for each of the following. We have days rented and cost. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I have the different costs up the side. Now the initial value is not just the first entry. The initial value would be term 0, and term 0 is not currently in my table. So what I'm going to have to do is pattern it out. And in order to pattern it out, it would help if I calculated the differences first. So I notice on the days rented side, to get from 1 to 2, I would add 1. From 2 to 3, we would add 1. And from 3 to 4, we would add 1. And then on the cost side, I would, from 266 to 402, I'm not sure what that is, so I'm going to calculate. Second number, 402, take away the first number, 266. Which is a difference of 136. So I added 136. And then I'm going to check 538. Take away 402 is also 136. And then 674, take away 538 is 136. Okay, so I do notice the differences are the same, which tells me that it's linear, right? So I should be able to follow that pattern backwards. So I have 1. I need to go back 1 space to get back to 0. I think I might write it on the top of the table here. So I would need to go back 1 day to get to day 0. So we would do a -1. And that means I'd have to go back 1 day on this side. So I would subtract 136. So 266, take away 136 is 130. So on day 0, it would have been $130. So my initial value would be $130. All right, there is one more example here. we've got x and y, so they don't actually have meaning. They're just x and y. So I have 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 400, 390, 380, 370. So what we're going to do is start with the differences, find the pattern, and then follow it backwards to get to term 0. So here I notice from 4 to 5, I'm going up 1. From 5 to 6, we're going up 1. From 6 to 7, we are going up 1. On the other side, from 400 to 390, I subtracted 10. You could use your calculator and do 390 take away 400. To get from 390 to 380, I subtracted 10. And to get from 380 to 370, I subtracted 10. So I want to work backwards to term 0. In this one, term 0 is just the one before day 1. Here, 0 is not the one in front of 4. There's actually several other numbers. So I'd have 3, then 2, then 1, and then 0. So I'm going to have to go back a number of times here. Right? So if I go backwards, instead of subtracting 10, I would add 10. So if I added 10 to 400, I would get 410. And if I added another 10 to that, I would get 420. If I added another 10 to that, I would get 430. And if I added another 10 to that, I would get 440. So my initial value is going to be 440. And there's no unit there, so it's just 440. Okay, I will see you in the next video to talk about how to calculate rate of change and initial value together.